So good morning, one and all present here. Welcome to the class on business statistics. My name is Amit Kumar Singh, and I'm going to do the first chapter on business statistics, which is called a statistical description of data. So, guys, I believe you have seen data in and around, and you know the importance of data in our day-to-day life. Right now, we are living in the world of machine learning. We are living in the term of artificial intelligence. We are talking about neural network. So, in this era, where we are trying to program our computers, or we want our computers to react with different kind of situations based upon certain algorithmic data which can be given to them. So in that era, what is important for us is the data. So with data is everything. When we talk about data, data can be of two forms. Data, when we express a data can be either, when we talk about a data can be either, it can be quantitative data, data can be either, it can be either quantitative data, or a data can be either qualitative data. So when we talk about a data, so it can be quantitative data or it can be qualitative data. So what is basically a quantitative data? What is basically a qualitative data? And before that, let's try to understand what is data. So what is data? Data is like everything, everything and anything which is visible to us, which is not visible to us. Probably that would be difficult to work on. Yeah, we can visualize that part. So those who have studied BCA and those who have basic understanding of computer, they know something called a cloud. Right now, everyone cloud. Yesterday in Times of India, an article came that after post-COVID, why the companies need to be in cloud. Cloud doesn't mean something which is here. Cloud is not something which give us rain. I'm not talking about geography here. Cloud is something which is already everywhere, which we can know, that we can interpret it possibly by using the internet platform. So it has become a very small because of the revolution of internet. So anything and everything on internet or should be in some medium which I can access, maybe in my Google Drive. So like the video which I'm doing recording for you people for this class, what I'll do, I'll post this video in my Google Drive. So that so tomorrow if I'm giving presentation in some college, if I have to talk about, yeah, I can teach statistics, I can simply show this video to them. Then I don't have to carry this video in pen drive or maybe in hard disk anywhere. I just need to put this video in my Google Drive and my work would be done. So means then my video is in cloud. So what we are talking about, we are trying to talk about data. Data is something which we can perceive, visible, which we can understand, which we cannot understand. So that in every form is the data to us. So when we talk about a data can be either, it can be a qualitative data, or a data can be either quantitative data. Qualitative data means something which expressing certain behavior, which is talking about a person or place. So qualitative data is something which is like, for example, your name or your gender, or it can be your religion. So that can be qualitative data. So that way I can see the data. So that data is not in numbers. Something which is in numbers, that is quantitative data. Something which you can express in number, that is a quantitative data. Quantitative data is a data which is there in the form of number. The data which is not there in the form of number, like your name, like your gender, like your qualification. So all these are basically called as qualitative data. So when we talk about qualitative data, the other name of qualitative data is ordinal data. This is the other name of qualitative data. When we talk about quantitative data, the other name of quantitative data is cardinal data. Cardinal data, quantitative data means the data which can be expressed in number. So the data which is there in the form of number is the quantitative data, while the data which is not there in the form of number, that is called as qualitative data. So when we are subject statistics, when I'm teaching you this subject called statistics, the limitation of this subject statistics is that this subject work on numbers. That is a problem with this subject. So this is the problem with this subject. trying to teach you this subject called statistics. The limitation of this subject is that this subject is only works on number. It cannot work on characters. It cannot work on attribute. So when you're talking statistics is something which should be numerically expressed. It should be numerically expressed. This subject should be numerically expressed. This subject should be expressed in the form of number. So if it cannot be expressed in the form of number, then it cannot be statistics. Then because statistics is all about research. When we study the subject statistics, right now the most important subject to become globally competent for the industry objective is this subject called statistics. So when we're talking about statistics, the limitation of this subject is that this subject should be expressed numerically. If the subject cannot be expressed numerically, you cannot study this subject because it is altogether working on mathematics, and mathematics cannot work on character. I remember Aryabhat, when Aryabhata came up with trigonometry, when he came up with the concept of other forms of mathematics, everything he did in the form of slopes, everything he did in the of Sanskrit rims. But we are not a Aryabhat, so we are normal individual. So when we want to study this subject, we need to make sure the subject should be expressed in the form of number. So that is the good thing about this subject, that this subject should be expressed in the form of number. So what is statistics? Statistics is all about understanding data. So we are studying the subject called statistics, description of a data, where we are trying to understand a data. A data can be either quantitative data, a data can be either qualitative data. Qualitative data express certain attributes like your name, like your gender, like your religion. The other name of qualitative data is the ordinal data, while the other form of a data is called quantitative data. So quantitative data is something which can be expressed in the form of number. Imagine if I give you newspaper which is written in Chinese and I ask you to read that newspaper. There's a newspaper which is written in Chinese. I ask you, can you read this newspaper? You say, sir, I cannot read this newspaper. Why? Because the language in which this newspaper is written, I cannot comprehend that language. So although data is there, although newspaper is there, so it is full of data, but we cannot understand the data. So the very important thing when we are working on statistics is to convert the data into information. That is the most important thing. Data is there. There's so many trillions of data are there. You go to YouTube, you'll get so much information, so many contents are given. But does those content really make sense to me? No. What is making more sense to me? Something which talks about finance, something which talks about mathematics. All that makes sense to me. Other thing apart from mathematics, other thing apart from finance, it doesn't make sense to me. So that is not what I'm looking for. So there are a lot of channels are there. Like one of the very famous channel, I cannot name that channel. So it's promoting a lot in Bangalore. So when I access that channel, there lot of data is there. Lot of contents are there related to mathematics, related to finance, related to competitive exam. But I don't found that content to be enough which I can access it. So will that make sense to me? No, it is not making sense to me. Data is there around me. Data is there around us. We have data around us always. We have qualitative data, we have quantitative data. What is important for us, that will be able to convert that into information or not. If we can convert that data into information, then only the data makes sense to us. So this is what we are trying to understand in this subject. Statistics is all about converting a data into information. I hope everyone understand this. So when we are trying to understand and we try to get more into understanding this subject called statistics, we'll go into the process, like the framework under which the subject works. So we'll discuss about them. Before that, let's try to look at history of the subject, how this subject has evolved over the time. So when I talk about the subject, how this subject basically has evolved from the time. So no one actually knows the history of statistics, like since how long people are using statistics, till the time the human start talking about society, till the time we started acting like a social animal and we started living together as a family. So from till that time, or from that time, we are using the subject called statistics. Earlier, statistics was used in the form of vital statistics, where statistics earlier that time the statistics were used only for counting purpose, to know that how many people are there in my family. Imagine I'm the head of the family, so I should know how many people live in my family. So for that reason, I was using this subject statistics. So earlier statistics was there in that form just for the counting purpose. As we grow more and more civilized, so then the objective of the subject statistics was limited again for the counting purpose. But now at this time, the kings used to do the counting of the all the people who are living in his kingdom, so that the king can know how are there in his kingdom, so that king can talk about its taxation policy, so that king can talk about his military policy. So there we can see the relevance of the subject statistics. You can see the relevance of statistics in a book called Arthashastra written by Kautilya or Chanakya. You can see the relevance of the subject statistics in the book written by Abu Fazl called Aini Akbari. So in that book, Abu Fazl has described the agricultural output during the Akbar time, all the agricultural output which were there in the form of numbers. So there you can see the relevance of statistics. So altogether, statistics is very old subject, but during that time, the purpose of the subject was the counting, where the king wanted to know how many people are there in his kingdom, and so that the king can talk about the military, so that they can talk about the taxation policy, because military and taxations are very important framework which can make any king a great king or a king as a great ruler. You talk about Alauddin Khilji. I hope you remember Alauddin Khilji. You have watched the movie Padmavat. You would have seen Alauddin Khilji in that movie. So Alauddin Khilji was one of the ruler who reached till South India. So Abu Fazl, not Abu Fazl, I'm telling you. What was name? Is Mir Qasim. So Mir Zafar or Mir Qasim, not remember. You saw in that movie also that guy was there, Padmavat. So Alauddin Khilji was one of the few rulers who reached till South India after Ashoka. Okay, so although Ashoka, after Kalinga war, he stopped fighting. So Alauddin Khilji was not like that. So after Alauddin Khilji, if I remember, someone who reached in South India was Aurangzeb. So Alauddin Khilji or Aurangzeb or Chandragupta Maurya. So why they become such a great ruler? Or you talk about Ghayasuddin Balban or Iltutmish, how they become a great ruler? Because they always talked about economics. They always talk about strengthening their kingdom. They talked about the laws of economics. They divided their land into different parts. The based upon the fertility of the land, they used to charge taxes. So they had good understanding of mathematics. They had good understanding of economics. They knew how to run the society, and then only they can become a great king by exploring more ventures as the time progressed. So when we talk about statistics, no one actually knows like how and where the subject has been developed. Some says that statistics is derived. Some says that statistics as a subject is derived. It is derived from Latin word. It says that it derived from the Latin word. It derived from the Latin word called status. Some say the statistics derived from the Latin word called status. Some say that statistics is derived. This term statistics is derived from the German word called statistic. Some says that the subject statistics is derived from the French word called statistique, derived from the hold for a moment. The pen is not working. So some says that derived from the French word called statistique, or some says that it derived from the Italian word called statista, or Italian word statista, where all these words, whatever you talk about status or you talk about statistic or you talk about Statistical, or you talk about Statista. All these words mean political state. All these words mean political state. All these words mean political state, where the purpose of this subject, where the purpose of working on statistics was basically associated with the administrative affair of state, where it was basically associated with the administrative affair of the state, okay, to how to run the system, how to run the society. So that was the biggest reason why this would have been used during that time as the time progressed. So you talk about any, so how they became great. So you talk about, uh, although many people say Mahmud Ghazni, who attacked India 17 times from, I think, from 1100, 1001 to 1025. The biggest conquer what he did was Somnath Temple in Gujarat. So although whatever the purpose of him was to get into India and try to loot as much as he can from the temples, getting all the gold jewelries. But ultimately, what Mahmud Ghazni did, he developed his own place called Ghazni. And if you go to Afghanistan, either it was Muhammad Ghazni, or either it was Alauddin Khilji, or either it's Ahmad Shah Abdali, they are being considered as a great king. So the reason why that they knew this subject statistics, they knew how to work on economics and how to run the. So initially, when we talked about this subject statistics, it was used for the counting purpose. By using that counting, the king got to know how many people were living in his kingdom, so that the king can talk about his taxation, it can talk its military policies. So we saw the history of this subject. We just now saw the present relevance of the subject. What is the present relevance of the subject? The present relevance of the subject is tremendous. You talk about any subject, you talk about accountancy, you talk about biology, you talk about microbiology, you talk about genetics, you talk about chemistry, you talk about physics. Anywhere and everywhere we are using statistics. Everything is being applied by using statistics. So in economics, when we use economics and statistics together, it is called econometrics. When we use biology and statistics together, it is called biostatistics. Okay, so statistics is a subject being used everywhere, even for MSc, by those people who do MSc genetics or MSc biology or microorganism, whatever microbiology. For them also, in first semester they study this subject statistics. So when you do research, you need to know to use statistics. Even then, if you are a engineering college faculty, even then you have to use statistics to do your PhD. So I'm just showing you the importance of this subject. When you study accountancy, you see your final reports, the final reports, to understand the financial position of the company. You look into the balance sheet. Balance sheet talks about the financial position of the company. You look into profit and loss statement, which talks about the expenses and the form of revenue for the company. What are these statements? Cash flow statement, fund flow statement, balance sheet, profit and loss statement. What are these statements? What are these? These are statistics. These are the statistics of your performance. If I want to know your performance, I want to know how you have done. If I want to know about Chetan, that how good is the Chetan. So I look into the statistics of a Chetan. I look into his marks card. I'll ask him his BCom, BBA, or BE. I ask his mark sheet. By looking at his mark sheet, I'll understand Chetan. So that is the way how the statistics works. Statistics is something which is always attached to us. There's a number value which is always attached to us. By looking at the number value, I can understand you. You want to understand me, then you have to look at my number value. So for my number value, what you can do? You want to check my number value. You can check my credit score, CIBIL. There's a body called CIBIL, Credit Information Bureau Limited. You can check my CIBIL score there. With that, you understand how much financially I am obliged to the system. So every one individual have a number. That number can be PAN number can be Aadhaar number,
number can be your driving license number. So that through that number only we are identifying any individual or any unit, any government, anything and everything around us with that number. So statistics as a subject is being used anywhere and everywhere. We talk about accountancy, we talk about biology, we talk about business. If you are not good with numbers, if you cannot read between the line, you cannot become a great manager also. So to become a great manager future, once you become the CEO of a company or when you start running your own company, you have to look into the number. You have to understand what that number is talking about. And that's how you become a great marketer or you become a great strategist. So there what came here, business statistics came. So when we talk about business statistics is being used everywhere. In what we do in business statistics, we are trying to understand the data. The data, by looking at the data, how we can understand the data, how we can work on the calculation of the data. Although data can be a qualitative data or a data can be quantitative data, we need to express that qualitative data into quantitative data. Then only we can work on statistics. Statistics is all about working on research. It's altogether a well-defined research. Okay, so that is how we work on statistics. Now, when we are working on statistics, we work on different process. What are the process? So we work on the process in statistics. What are the process on statistics when we work on statistics? So what are the process through which we can work on statistics? The process on which we work on statistics, it can be collection of data. So it can be collection of data. So statistics is all about data. So statistics is all about how you can understand the data. Certain time when you see the data, you may not able to understand it, or maybe the data is are in trillions. So what you need to understand, you need to go through the data. You need to do some mathematical homework on that data. You need to clean that data, and then ultimately you get some inference from the data. So when we work on statistics, statistics is all about working on data. It is all about converting the data into information. So the first step, what you do on statistics is the collection of data. So once you collected the data, then the next thing we talk about is the organization and the classification of the data. Then the next thing what we do is the organization and the classification of data. Then the next thing what we do is the organization and the classification of the data. The third thing, first thing we collect the data. Okay, once you collected the data, then you need to clean the data. You need to make sure that the data should be arranged in a systematic order. So once you organized and classified the data, once your organization is part is done, so first you collected, then you organized, and then after that what you do, you analyze it. After that what you do, you analyze it. Okay, so once you analyze it, analysis is all about applying mathematical principle on the data. So you try to analyze it, you try to understand it, you work on all the forms of mathematics what you have studied, you try to apply on the data. Once you have applied all the form of mathematics on the data, then then what you need to do, you need to come up with a conclusion, you need to come up with the inference. So the fourth part on statistics is the inference. The fourth part on the statistics is the inference from the analysis. Inference from the analysis on data. The fourth part is the inference from the analysis of data. So the inference what you get from the analysis of the data. So that inference what you got, you need to tell to the world that inference what you got. That is called as the presentation of data. This is basically called as the presentation of data. So when we work on statistics, statistics works on different processes. So the first process is to collect the data, because if we cannot collect the data, then we cannot process anything on that. So the first thing when we are working on statistics is to collect the data, because statistics is all about understanding the data. It's all about working on a data, and it's all about getting some inference from the data. So the first thing what we need to do, we need to collect the data. So how we collect the data? So when we talk about the data collection in statistics, so in that we study two forms.
So one data, it can be either primary data or a data can be either secondary data. So when you talk about a data, so a data can be either when we are trying to collect the data. So then a data can be either collected as a primary data or as a secondary data. I hope everyone is understanding what this subject is all about. Okay, what this subject is all about. This subject is all about research. So when we are studying statistics, statistics is all about doing research. So welcome student, welcome everyone to the world of research. Now you are welcomed in the world of research. As the time will progress, try to learn tools like the best tool to work on statistics. If you want to work on, you have to learn R. The R is the right now the most important tool through which we work on statistics. So we work on R. So we work on R, then we have Python. So try to work on R, try to work on Python, because gradually once you understood the theory part of statistics, you need to get into the technical part to work on statistics. So you need to learn R, you need to learn Python, you need to learn Excel. So all these tools when you learn, then only you become a great statistician, then only you can become someone who can analyze the situation. So analyzing the situation, or working on doing the research, that should be your objective during the era when you are going to learn this subject called statistics. So when we are trying to learn this subject statistics, so statistics is all about doing research. So when we are trying to do research, so the first and primary thing in doing research is to work on data, is to first, before you work on the data, is to collect the data. So when you are trying to collect the data, then you use two methods. Either you work on primary data, or either you will work on secondary data. So what is primary data, what is secondary data? Primary data is the data which you collect first time from your hard work. So the data is not available in public domain. Such data which are not available in public domain, or in any other domain which can be accessed, such data if you are trying to collect from your hard work, depending upon the objective of that research, if you are trying to collect that data, that is what is called as primary data. Suppose I told Ganesh that, Ganesh, you have to figure out, Ganesh, what you have to do in your locality, how many people are living in your locality. Ganesh, you have to go to their houses and ask their name, their phone number, their mail ID, their educational qualification, everything you have to collect, and you need to submit that to me on Monday. Suppose I gave one assignment to Ganesh, that Ganesh has to go to everyone houses who of all the people who live in his locality, and Ganesh has to get their name, their phone number, their mail ID, and their educational qualification. And then if Ganesh went to everyone houses and start asking the details what I told to Ganesh, and Ganesh either wrote down all that on the piece of paper, or he took all the data in his computer, whatever medium, either computer or either paper. If Ganesh tried to write all this information, and then on Monday if Ganesh present that data to me saying that, sir, these are the people who are living in my locality, this is their name, their phone number, their mail ID, etc., etc., etc. So then that is called as primary data. So primary data is the data which we collect first time depending upon our objective. What is our objective? In order to satisfy that objective, we are trying to collect the data. So by doing that hard work, then that is called as primary data. I hope everyone understood what is primary data. So when we work on primary data, the person who collect the primary data, that person is called as enumerator. So enumerator is the person who collect the primary data. So working on primary data is a time consuming, it is a tedious job, it takes money, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money. So but again, it's the chance of error when we work on primary data is very less. Okay, so because the chance of error in primary data is very less, again it is very important that the enumerator who is collecting the primary data, then so for that person, he or she, that person should have proper knowledge about the objective of the research. Suppose if I'm doing some research about, I want to know how many people in Bangalore are aware about a disease called arthritis. Suppose I want to know how many people are aware about Alzheimer disease in Bangalore. So I told all my enumerator to go and do this, collect this data, go to everyone's house and ask them that are they aware about Alzheimer disease or not. So what happens in Alzheimer disease? Try to get all the possible data, try to get all the possible input what the people in Bangalore knows about Alzheimer disease. So imagine instead these enumerator whom I signed to do collect this data. Imagine if these people instead of going to home, if they went to mall, Bangalore Central Mall, and they are trying to ask people who come out from that mall after watching some movie, if they ask them that, sir, are you aware about Alzheimer disease? Can you tell me about Alzheimer disease? What you know about Alzheimer disease? Nobody will gonna reply them properly, because my enumerator did not understood the sensitiveness of the research. The reason why I want to do the research, that is very important. Imagine you heard of Serum Institute of India, you heard of Pfizer, they are developing the vaccine for the coronavirus. So when they're developing the vaccine for the coronavirus, once the vaccine is being developed, they do clinical trial. They go to different, they invite different volunteers for the clinical trial, and then the virus sample were being injected to them. So this virus sample is being injected to their body, and then the response is being seen. I hope everyone knows what is vaccine. What is vaccine? I hope everyone knows what is vaccine, how vaccine works. So to in order to test the effectiveness of the coronavirus vaccine, so the small form or the weakened form of the virus need to be injected in the body of the people, and then same thing can be observed. Then the body should be observed for the brief movement of the time, and then the results are being recorded to understand how that response is working on the body. Okay, so that way when we are doing, so this form of doing research is called direct observation method. This form of doing research is called direct observation method. So when we work on direct observation method, imagine if we are not sensitive enough to understand the reason of doing this research, and simply any amount of the dose if we simply inject in our body, and if we are not also observing the changes in the respondent body once the virus is being injected to them, then the whole research will go on toss. So it is very important that the enumerator who are working on the research, they should understand the sensitiveness of the research. If you are doing a research for your college work, if you're doing some research, your teacher, now in your MBA, after your second semester, you'll do the project work. After your third semester, also you do the project work. That time it is very common that the student go to library and they take the data of the seniors. The seniors, whatever the work the senior has done, they try to copy and paste the data of the senior. That thing is very common. That thing is very common, and that is can be understandable certain time. But what is important here is that how sensitive is the research. So the output what you're gonna present to your management based on your project work, will that gonna make some economic change? Will is this work is being taken by Raghuram Rajan to talk about the inflation policies of a country? May not be. I don't think so. I also believe you also will say, yeah, sir, that is not going to work. So sensitiveness of research is very important. When research is not that much sensitive, then possibility of error can be acceptable till certain extent. But when the research is very sensitive, so you are working on the development of vaccine of the coronavirus, and if you are not serious in recording the data, if you're not serious in working on how the primary data need to be worked on, then it would become a very questionable task on which we are working on. So when we talk about primary data is the data which we collect first time depending upon our objective, and depending upon the objective of the research,
the data which we collect first time, that is called as primary data, and we can work on primary data by different ways. We can work on direct observation method, or we can work on direct interview method. So we can work on direct interview method, or we can work on indirect interview method, or we can work on indirect interview method. We can work on indirect interview method, or we can work on telephonic interview method. There are different ways are there, so which you can collect the primary data. So you can collect the primary data through direct observation method, or by direct interview method, or by indirect interview method, or by telephonic interview method, or or by using mailed questionnaires, or by using mailed questionnaires. So there are different ways are there through which you can work on primary data. So direct observation method, I already explained you that when Serum Institute of India or Pfizer, when they are working on the development of vaccine of coronavirus, first they request volunteers for this purpose. When these volunteers comes, then blood report and all other forms of the report before injecting the vaccine is being taken. Then the vaccine dose is being injected in the body, and then they are kept under observation, where different forms of changes in the body is continually monitored for the brief movement of time, so that we can understand the effectiveness of the drug which is being created. That is called as direct observation method. So in direct observation method, we work on continuous of process which takes time to work on. Then primary data can be collected through direct interview method. So then like what when I told Ganesh that Ganesh, you go and today you go and figure out how many people are living. Ganesh, today you go and figure out how many people are living in your society. You need to note their phone number, their mail ID, their phone number, their mail ID, their other information. So in that time when Ganesh went and start asking the people, so it can be that many people, because of corona, they may not be very interested to meet the stranger or to write the kind of questions which the Ganesh is trying to ask them. So what Ganesh can do during that time, Ganesh can send them a questions through mail. So through mail, Ganesh can send them their questions. Ganesh expect them that they can respond to Ganesh. So that way the without be in touch with anyone, Ganesh could able to gather the data required for the research what his teacher has told Ganesh to do. So that can be again very good way to collect the data. But whenever we set the questionnaires, whenever we are setting a questionnaires, we need to keep few point in our mind that the questionnaires what we are setting, it should be simple, it should be logical, it should be arranged in a systematic manner. It should not hurt the religious sentiment of anyone. It should not create should not create anything remark which can hurt anyone's feeling or sentiment. The question should be short, simple. It may be in the form of true and false or fill in the blank. Followed by, you can write that if you want to mention more, you can mention that. So that way we need to set the questions. So that should not hurt anyone religious sentiment or societal reason, but at the same time it should give us the required output what we are looking for. So what Ganesh can do to get to know how many people are living in his Ganesh society, what Ganesh can do, Ganesh can directly interview them. So Ganesh can go with a camera or mobile camera. Instead of writing, Ganesh can record everything. So right now we are living in the world of cloud. So why to write anything? Why to waste paper, save trees? And Ganesh can record all the questions. Ganesh can do a kind of interview of those people, keeping his camera on, and that way Ganesh can record everything for the future also. So that is called direct interview. In that interview can be the person which we are looking for. If that person is not available, then the same question can be asked to his wife or children or to the relative to gather the data for the same kind of question. Telephonic interviews, you know that in case if Ganesh went to someone's house and if that someone is not there in his house, so what Ganesh can do, Ganesh can later on call them and try to get the answers of these questions. So these are the ways through which we can gather the data which Ganesh is trying to gather, depending upon the objective of the research, based upon his hard work. So this data is called as primary data. Primary data is the data which we collect first time. Okay, what is secondary data? Secondary data is the data which is already available in public domain or in a domain which can be accessed. Like in the answer for the question in exam, when you're writing the exam, the answer what you write by yourself is the primary data. While someone, if someone has copied your answer, then it is a secondary data. Secondary data is all about using the data which is already available. Either you go to the library of your college and you take the project work of your senior, and from there you simply copy and paste the work what your senior has done, then that is called as secondary data. Secondary data, you using secondary data which is already available. When I told Ganesh that Ganesh, you have to figure out the name, the phone number, the mail ID of all the people who live in your locality. So what Ganesh can do, instead of going to everyone's house, Ganesh could have went to the database system where the information of all the people who live in the locality of Ganesh is there. Or Ganesh can go to the security office and ask the security guy that I want the name of all the people who live in my locality. And definitely the security guy would have that all the data. So Ganesh can simply copy and paste the data from there, and he can present the same data to his teacher, stating that the sir, what assignment you have given me, I have done that assignment. Okay, so that way, if Ganesh is using, if Ganesh don't want to do hard work, Ganesh is a smart worker. So that way, if Ganesh is doing the work, then it is all about using the secondary data. But whenever we use the secondary data, it is very important that whenever we are working with secondary data, it is very important that we need to check reliability of the data. We need to check that how authentically we can use the data. That is something which is very important. You heard of channels like Wikipedia. So Wikipedia, when we talk of Wikipedia, Wikipedia is editable. You can edit Wikipedia. So such sources which can be editable, they cannot be rely 100%. More than Wikipedia, if you want the details of any particular data, you can better go to encyclopedia or you can go to Britannica, so that they can give you more reliable information, which cannot be editable. So that way, it's again your wish. Secondary data is the data which is already available. Imagine when the Ganesh went to the security office to get to know how many people are living in the society, and suppose the security guy gave all the detail to Ganesh, but maybe the data is not updated from last 2 years. Maybe the recently last month only one person left the society, another person came, and then, and in that way that data is not being updated in the system. If the data is not being updated in the system, then Ganesh end up in getting the old data. So here, when we are using secondary data, it is very important that we should check the reliability of the data. It is very important that we can authenticate the data. We can figure out that how much we can rely on this data. That using the data which is already available in public domain, maybe in Google or maybe in Wikipedia or maybe in any medium through which you can get the data using them, that is called as secondary data. So primary data is the data which we collect first time from our hard work, and secondary data is the data which is already available in the public domain or in a private domain, and we are simply accessing that data, that is called secondary data. Writing your own answers in exam is all about working on primary data, and copying the answers in exam from someone else notebook, that is called a secondary data. So if you copy, if you're using secondary data, if you're copying from someone other person answer sheet in exam, if that person is a hard working student, he or she knows the answer, then automatically you will also get the marks. But if he or she is a dumb person, and if you're trying to copy from that dumb person, then you also lose your marks. So instead of you understanding, so instead of being answered by yourself, you relied on someone else, and that someone else did not know the answer. The someone else was simply bluffing in the exam, and you went with that bluff. So that is how it works. So whenever we work on statistics, the first thing in statistics is to collect the data. So when we are working on collection of data, we can either work on primary data or we can either work on secondary data. So different ways through which we can collect the primary data are mail questionnaires, direct observation method, direct interview method, indirect interview method, telephonic interview method. Anyone, any question? Anyone want to ask any question? Please ask your question by using mail. Sorry, mail I'm saying. But you please ask your question by using chat option. Anyone have any doubt? Someone was raising their hand when I was teaching. One minute, let me take the screenshot of all the people who are attending today class. Tiba. Okay, everyone. Anyone have any doubt? Anyone want to ask any question? Feel free to ask. Anyone want to ask any question? Anyone? Any question? Anyone? Okay. Okay, Bharat. Thank you. So any doubt? Anyone? Anyone, any doubt? So have you heard of this? So there are different processes are there when we work on statistics. So it is all about collection of data. The first thing in statistics is to work on the data. We talked about data. It can be collected by two ways. Either we use primary data or we use secondary data. So these are the ways through which we work on primary data. These are the ways of working on primary data. Anyone have any question? Anything you want to ask? Secondary data, whenever we work on, it is all about working on the data which is already available. Okay, then the next thing what we do is the organization and the classification of data. So when we talk about organization and the classification of data, when we talk about organization and classification of data, when we talked about organization and the classification of data, what are the different ways we can organize and classify the data? So there we talked about different ways of classification data. So it can be quantitative classification, it can be quantitative classification, it can be quantitative classification, or it can be qualitative classification. The different ways are there through which you can classify the data. It can be either
quantitative classification or qualitative classification, or it can be geographical classification, or it can be geographical classification, or it can be either chronological spelling, chronolo, chronological classification. So the first thing in statistics, what we do, the first thing in statistics, we collect the data. Okay, so once our data is being collected, the next thing when we are working on statistics is to organize and classify the data. Organization is very important. Cleaning is the very important. I worked in TCS, and we what we used to do. We are working for a German bank called Deutsche Bank. So we used to get the data of the trading done by the Deutsche Bank. So what our work used to be, there was a system we used to pull that data and we used to get the data. The data was in trillions. So trillions of bytes of data were there. So what we used to do, we had to clean the data. For cleaning the data, we were using Excel, we are using SQL, we are using Python, we are using these platforms to clean the data. So cleaning data, organizing the data by using pivot table or by working on VLOOKUP, that was something which is very important, because if you do not clean the data, then it doesn't make any sense. Then nobody can analyze the data. In order to do analysis can be only be done when the data is being cleaned, when the data is being grouped together. Likewise, data, if that can be grouped together. So what you need to do, you need to organize the data in some appropriate order. Imagine if I'm running MBA college in Kengeri. Suppose if I'm running an MBA college in Kengeri and I got the data of all the students who are in last year of their graduation. Suppose I got the data of all the students who are in last year of their graduation. Okay, either they're engineer or BBA, BCom, BCA. I got the data of all the students who are in last year of their graduation. Then what should I do? What should I do? Should I start calling everyone like that randomly? Should I call everyone? So that really doesn't make sense. So what I should do? First, I should organize the data. So those who are in last year, or someone who is already done last year, 3 year back. So that person cannot be would be the appropriate person who can come to my institute. So what should I do? I should first organize the data on the time period. I should organize the data on the basis of time period. So that is called chronological classification. The other name of chronological classification is the time series classification. The other name of chronological classification is time series classification. So based on the time period, I should organize the data. When someone has given this data of all the person who are in last year of the graduation, maybe that someone has simply gave me data of 2 year back person also who did their graduation 3 year back also, maybe someone who is in first year of their graduation. So those people not gonna come who is in first year of graduation. He or she cannot be my potential customer, or who are in already who has done their graduation 3 year back, they cannot be my potential customer. Who are my potential customer? Who are in the last year of the graduation. So chronological means time period. Chronology means time series, time period. So through using time period, I need to organize the data. That is called chronological classification. As we go further and we study statistics, we'll study something called time series analysis. We'll do something called time series analysis. So when we'll study time series analysis, there I'll give more emphasis on this part. So we'll work on that part. Then it can be geographical classification. Geographical, everything can understand the meaning the word called geographical. The other name of geographical classification is the spatial classification. So when we say geographical classification means based on geography, you try to group the data. So if someone is there in Kanyakumari, or someone is there in Assam or maybe Meghalaya,
So they definitely not going to come to my institute. So geographically also it is important to organize the data, because my college is located in Kengeri. Then it's those who are living near to Kengeri, I should call them first. So if I get the data of all the people who are in the, or those who are in the last year of the graduation in around Bangalore, I should try to target more those students who are living in and around Kengeri. So that way it's more chances of conversion is there. So geographically also I need to organize the data. Geographically also I need to classify the data. So I can classify the data geographically. So I can classify the data on the basis of time period. I can classify the data on the basis of genders also. Certain time there are some colleges which are girls college, or there are some colleges which are boys college. So imagine if there's a college called Mount Carmel College, which is a girls college. So there, if I get a data of boys and all, boys and girls and all, so boys data is not relevant for me because I'm running a girls college. So that way, when I'm doing classification, that is called qualitative classification. The other name of qualitative classification is the ordinal classification. So qualitative features, either it can be name, it can be gender, it can be religion, it can be qualification. So qualification again matters a lot for many people, many colleges. Like suppose I don't have good faculties of IT or operations, so I cannot call those students who are engineers, because engineers will not, because because if I don't have specialization of operations or system, so then definitely engineers will not be interested to be the part of my college. So those, if I have more accounts or finance faculty, should give more preference to someone who is in BCom or BBA. So that will make more sense to me. So looking into the qualification, name, or looking into the gender, all that can be the qualitative features which I can do. On that basis I can classify them. Quantitative classification quantitative classification means I can classify the data on the basis of the marks. So features of quantitative classification can be marks. Those who are intelligent students, those who are above 90% getter in their graduation, I should call them first. I should give them scholarship, so that in future they can easily placed in the market, so that in the future when they'll get very good result in Bangalore city, they can be very good asset for me. They could be someone who can sell my name much more higher in the market. So that way I should call those people who are the topper of their specialization, so that they should come and become the part of my college. So quantitative classification is all about talking about numbers and organizing the data on the basis of numbers, and then, and based upon the numbers, when we organize the data, and then we are doing some form of analysis on that. Qualitative classification is all about organizing the data on the basis of attributes like name, it can be gender, it can be qualification, it can be religion. Geographical classification is all about dividing the data on the basis of geography, in the basis of location of a particular individual, while chronological classification is all about arranging the data on the basis of chronology or that time period. So this all we studied, we need to work on when we talk about the organization and the classification of data. So in statistics, when we are trying to study statistics, there are different processes on which we work on statistics. The first process on which we work on statistics is the collection of data. After the collection of data, then the next thing what we need to do is the organization and classification of data. In organization and classification of data, we talked about quantitative, qualitative, geographical, and chronological classification, which ultimately help us to organize the data in the appropriate order, so that we can start working on our analysis. So further process we'll study in the next class. So in this class, we basically studied about what is statistics, how we work on statistics, what is the importance of statistics. We talked about the history of statistics, and now we are working on the process of statistics, in which we did two steps. First one was the collection of the data. The next one was the classification and organization of data. Done everyone? Anyone have any doubt? Or I have taken the attendance, those who are present in the class.
So I have taken that attendance already for those people. Anyone, any question, any doubt, anyone want to ask anything? Before I wind up the class, any question, anyone? Anyone, any question? Anyone want to ask any question? Guys, any question, anyone? I hope everyone have understood what all we have done in the class. Anyone who has studied statistics in their PU, or if they have studied statistics in your BCom, BBA, in BCom again we had this subject statistics, definitely would have understood what all I have covered till now. Any confusion, any doubt, anyone? Can we wind up the class? So if no one have any doubt, then it's time to say goodbye to all of you. So thank you everyone. See you all in next class.